A young boy sits at the dining table. He speaks little, aware that the wrong words will bring a quiet over the room and sharpen every gaze. He looks down at his plate, pushing food around, wishing he could fade away. His sister earns a smile for telling about her day. His brother is praised for his schoolwork. But when he speaks, the air changes. His words aren't treated as errors. They feel like violations. He feels like a stranger inside his own home. This is the quiet reality of the overlooked child. Not always disliked in speech or deed, but in feeling, in the subtle signs, in the exhale when they walk in the sense that their presence is an interruption rather than a welcome. And for many, this isn't fiction. It is memory. The human heart comes into the world seeking connection. It longs for warmth, safety, and acceptance. A child arrives without defenses, open, tender, hungry for love. When that love is withheld or replaced with irritation, the child doesn't only feel unloved. They feel unlovable. That distinction changes everything. Feeling unloved is a situation. Feeling unlovable becomes who you are. Research on early development shows how powerfully childhood rejection and neglect shape us. John Bowlby, known for his work on attachment, described a child's earliest bonds as the foundation for all future relationships. When those bonds are nurturing, the child grows with assurance. When they are distant or harsh, the child absorbs that rejection, carrying it through life. The overlooked child becomes the adult who still flinches, even when no hand is raised. And here is what complicates it further. The overlooked child often doesn't recognize they were overlooked. To a child, parents aren't just caregivers, they are the world. If a parent shows disregard, the child doesn't think, my parent has flaws. They think, I must be flawed. Their mind adapts to preserve the bond. The hurt turns inward. The rejection becomes part of their sense of self. This is why many who felt overlooked grow into adults wrestling with quiet uncertainties. Am I enough? Do I deserve love? Why does closeness feel so hard? One of the most painful elements is comparison. When affection is uneven among siblings, the child notices. They notice who is praised, who is celebrated, who is held gently. And they notice the shift when it's their turn. It isn't always obvious. Less eye contact, shorter patience, fewer cheers for small wins. But to a child's nervous system, the message is clear. Such an environment trains the child to expect rejection, even in safe settings. A teacher's critique, a friend's quietness, a partner's stress, all can feel like evidence of what they've long suspected. I am not wanted. Developmental studies confirm that children who experience parental rejection often show lower self-esteem and higher anxiety or sadness. But it goes further. Rejection alters how the brain reads social signals. In other words, the overlooked child grows into an adult who may perceive rejection even where there is none. The lens of childhood tints the view of adulthood. Interestingly, many overlooked children develop what psychologists term compensatory strategies. They try to earn love in ways once denied to them. Some turn to perfectionism, believing that without flaw they'll finally be worthy. Others become pleasers, reshaping themselves to gain approval. Some move in the opposite direction, using rebellion as a shield, pushing others away before they can be left. Yet beneath these strategies lies the same injury. I was not accepted as I am. Perfectionism, rebellion, compliance, these are masks. They are ways of surviving, not identities. But the overlooked child often forgets this. They mistake the mask for who they are, living for years under the weight of a role they never chose. Why does this matter? Because silence lets patterns repeat. Children who grow up feeling rejected often learn not to speak of it. They worry that voicing the hurt will only confirm their inadequacy. But unspoken pain doesn't vanish. It lingers. It steers decisions. For instance, an overlooked child may unknowingly choose partners who repeat the same emotional dynamic, critical, distant, dismissive, because it feels familiar. The mind is drawn to what it knows, even when what it knows is hurtful. This is how cycles continue across generations. Not because anyone wishes it, but because unhealed patterns echo forward. And if we widen the view, we see this isn't only about families. It's about a culture that often fails to recognize or value emotional safety, a culture that may produce parents who were once overlooked children themselves. Hurt echoes until someone chooses to stop it. From a biological perspective, when a child feels rejected, their nervous system senses threat. Stress hormones like cortisol fill the body. Over time, this repeated stress reshapes neural pathways. Neuroscience research links chronic childhood rejection to increased activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, and decreased activity in the prefrontal cortex, which helps regulate emotions. In daily life, this means the overlooked child grows up highly alert, always watching for signs of rejection. It means they might react strongly to small slights, not because they want to, but because their nervous system has been trained that way. It means calm can feel unfamiliar, while unease feels like home. Yet here lies a paradox. The overlooked child often becomes deeply attuned to others' emotions. They can sense a room's mood with striking accuracy. This isn't magic, it's survival. When your safety depended on anticipating rejection, you learn to read subtle cues. There is a tragedy many miss. The overlooked child isn't always visibly mistreated. Sometimes they grow up in families that seem ordinary from the outside. Birthdays, trips, laughter. But inside, they feel unseen, set apart, or perpetually off. This invisibility can ache more than open hostility, because there's no clear proof. Nothing to point to and say, "See, this is why I hurt." So they question themselves. They wonder, maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe it's just me. Doubt woven into family dynamics isn't always deliberate, but it lingers into adulthood. They may find success, form relationships, build families, yet deep down carry a whisper. Something is wrong with me. Years later, the overlooked child is now 30, 40, 50. They may no longer think of themselves that way, but the echoes remain. They appear in relationships, fear of abandonment, trouble trusting, a pull toward distant partners. They appear in work, overworking, fearing failure, doubting worth despite achievements. They appear in self-talk, harsh, unsparing, repeating the voices they grew up with. This is why healing isn't about erasing the past, but understanding it. Seeing the pattern clearly is the first step in changing it. Why does rejection cut so deeply? Why does being the overlooked child shape a life so thoroughly? Because love isn't optional for a child. Love is oxygen. Acceptance is nourishment. Belonging is shelter. Without it, the spirit doesn't just ache. It struggles to breathe. And unlike physical needs, emotional deprivation is invisible. No bruises, no breaks. Only a quiet wearing away of the self. Philosophers have written of despair as a sickness of the soul, an inability to become oneself. For the overlooked child, despair begins not in large tragedies, but in small daily dismissals. A sigh, a glance, a silence. From these moments, an identity forms. But here is the hidden truth. The identity of the overlooked child isn't the child's essence. It is a scar, not the skin. And while scars remain, they need not decide the future. The overlooked child doesn't only carry wounds, they carry gifts. Their sensitivity can become empathy. Their loneliness can fuel creativity. Their resilience, forged in rejection, can become courage in life's storms. History holds many who turned rejection into vision, artists, thinkers, leaders who once felt unwanted. They channeled pain into purpose, isolation into insight. This isn't to romanticize suffering, but to highlight possibility. We've traced the roots, the early rejection, the quiet comparisons, the unseen hurts that stretch into adulthood. But the story doesn't end there, because we are not only products of our past. We are also authors of our future. The first truth is this: the cycle can be broken, not by chance, but by awareness. Healing begins when the adult recognizes the child they were, not to blame endlessly or dwell in old pain, but to see clearly what happened. What goes unseen repeats. What is denied lives on in shadow. Psychologists call this reparenting, offering yourself as an adult the care and compassion you needed as a child. Sounds simple, yet it is profound. Reparenting is telling yourself, you are worthy, you are lovable, You belong. Words you may never have heard, but words your nervous system longs to absorb. Naming the experience is powerful. When you can say, I grew up feeling unwanted, something shifts. The fog begins to lift. What felt like vague shame, something is wrong with me, becomes a wound with a cause. And wounds with causes can be tended. Trauma research shows that putting experience into words lessens its emotional weight. Language brings order to chaos. Naming turns a private ache into a shared truth. It lets the overlooked child, now grown, understand. This wasn't my fault. This happened to me. Attachment theory tells us early rejection wires the brain to expect more rejection. But here is hope. Attachment styles aren't fixed. Through intentional relationships, therapy, friendships, loving partnerships, people can build what psychologists call earned secure attachment. Even if you began life doubting love, you can relearn it. The nervous system can be rewired. The brain can form new pathways. Science confirms what the heart hopes. It is never too late to feel safe, but healing asks for compassion, especially self-compassion. Research shows that treating ourselves kindly in moments of pain reduces anxiety, sadness, and shame. Yet for the overlooked child, compassion can feel strange. Criticism feels familiar. Harshness feels normal. Practicing self-compassion breaks an old pattern. It says, I won't treat myself the way I was once treated. Each gentle act, resting when tired, forgiving a mistake, speaking kindly to yourself, becomes a quiet rebellion against the old story. Remember how the overlooked child becomes finely attuned to others' feelings. That same sensitivity, once healed, becomes a gift, empathy, intuition, depth of understanding. These qualities make for caring friends, thoughtful partners, insightful artists, and compassionate leaders. What was once survival can become strength. The overlooked child isn't destined to remain broken. They are called to transform, to turn rejection into insight, silence into expression, pain into connection. And what of families? What happens when the overlooked child becomes a parent? Here lies another chance. Many adults who felt rejected vow their children will never feel the same. Some succeed, offering unconditional love and breaking the chain for good. Others struggle because unhealed wounds still echo. Again, awareness is key. When a parent recognizes, I was once the overlooked child, they can pause. They can ask, am I projecting my pain onto my child? Or am I choosing differently now? That pause, that awareness is where cycles end. Why does being overlooked cut so deep? Because human beings are made for belonging. We are social beings. Modern science confirms this. Loneliness registers in the brain like physical pain. Rejection activates the same neural pathways as injury. So when a child is rejected, it doesn't only hurt emotionally, it hurts biologically. It feels like a wound because it is one. A wound in the core of human need, the need to belong. But here is the hopeful truth. Belonging can be rebuilt. Not always with the family you came from,
You are worthy.
but with chosen family, with friends, with communities where you are seen and valued. Belonging isn't limited to blood. It can be chosen, created, nurtured. So what is the transformation? It is the shift from victim to author. The overlooked child begins as a victim of circumstance. Healing invites them to become a creator of circumstance.
I think what we're all feeling,
Instead of
but haven't
asking,
said, is that with
why was I
technology and
unwanted?
openly can help us
The
move
healed
forward
adult
together.
asks, what kind of life do I choose to build now? This isn't denying pain. It's weaving it into who you are. Saying, yes, I was rejected. Yes, it shaped me, but it does not define me. That is the turning point. To bring this into daily life, here are steps the overlooked child, now grown, might take. Awareness through writing. Write memories of feeling unwanted. Then write the truth beneath them. It wasn't my fault. I was worthy of love then, and I am worthy now. Therapeutic connections. Seek therapy or safe friendships where steady acceptance can help rewire your nervous system towards safety. Boundaries. If old family patterns continue to hurt, practice setting limits. Healing doesn't require endless exposure to rejection. Self-expression. Art, writing, music, outlets that turn quiet pain into visible creation. Expression is the opposite of erasure. Daily compassion practice. Speak to yourself as you would to a child in pain. This simple shift over time reshapes identity. The overlooked child begins life marked by rejection. But rejection doesn't have to be the final word. History shows countless people who started unwanted yet transformed their lives. Some became visionaries. Some became healers. Some built gentle, loving families of their own. The common thread: they refused to let rejection have the last say. And perhaps that is the lesson for us all. Even if you were once the overlooked child, even if you still carry the ache of being unseen, you aren't sentenced to live there forever. You can choose a different ending. You can choose to belong first to yourself, and then to those who see you truly. So let's return to the image we began with, the young boy at the table, looking down, feeling invisible. Perhaps that boy is still within you. Perhaps that girl still waits to be seen. The invitation now is simple. Look at them. See them. Tell them what no one else did. You are worthy. You are enough. You belong. Because healing begins the moment the overlooked child is finally met with love. Not borrowed, not conditional, but love that says, you exist, and therefore you matter. And maybe that is the deepest truth. The overlooked child isn't truly overlooked forever. They are waiting for someone, perhaps even themselves, to finally say yes.